6.6 Simple Interest. In this section, we are going to talk about the simple interest formula and how to use it. But before that, we need to go over a couple of definitions. When I deposit $100 into a bank account and I earn 10% interest every year for having that $100 in that bank account, then I will get $10, which is 10% of $100 every year added to my account. Now, the $100 that I deposited is called my principal amount. And the amount of money that I earned, that $10, that's my simple interest. That's how much money I earned for having that $100 in that bank account for 1 year. Okay, so the simple interest formula says simple interest is equal to the principal, the amount of money that I deposited or borrowed, times my interest rate, and that interest rate must be in decimal form, times t, time, and that time has to be in years. So in your notes, I would like for you to label each section of the simple interest formula. Okay, now we can use that simple interest formula to help us find a balance. So when we deposit $500 in a savings account and that savings account earns 3% simple interest per year, we want to know what our balance is after 3 years. But before we can figure out what our balance is after 3 years, we must first calculate how much simple interest did we earn over those 3 years? And then we can add that to our principal amount, and that will be our balance. So to find the simple interest, let's look to see what information they gave us in our problem. They said we deposited $500. That's our principal amount. They said that we're earning 3% simple interest per year, and 3% in decimal form is 0.03. And the amount of times they told us that we had it in that account is 3 years. Okay, remember this has to be years. So if they were to tell us it was 18 months, then it would be 1.5 years, right? So the time can be in decimal form, but it must represent years. All right, so to calculate our simple interest, we simply put it into this formula here, which says I equals P, which is 500, times our rate, which is 0.03, times the amount of years, which is 3, right? So if we multiply that all out, that equals $45. So if we add that interest to our principal amount, $500 is our principal, 45 is how much interest we earn, so our balance is $545. Now we can also use this to help us determine what our annual interest rate is, R. Okay, so in this situation, we deposit $1,000 into our account. That's our principal amount. The account earns $100 simple interest in 4 years. All right, so we can use these numbers to help us calculate the rate, R. So simple interest was 100. That equals our principal, which was 1,000, times our rate, which we don't know, times 4 years. So this simplifies down to 100 equals 4,000. R, divide both sides by 4,000 so we can get our R. And our R equals 1 over 40, right? Which is the same as 0.025, right? But in percent form, we multiply that by 100 or move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So our annual interest rate is 2.5%. Okay, so the other thing we can use this formula for is to find the amount of time. So if we have a bank account, in our bank account, we have a principal of $800, and we earn $100 in interest. let's see, our principal amount was $800, so we don't fit in this one. We fit in this one, so our rate is 2%, and 2% in decimal form is 0.02. So we can use all this information to help us find T time, right? So the amount of interest we earned was what? $100. Our principal amount was $800. The rate is 0.02, and we don't know what time is. So this simplifies down to 100 equals 16t. Divide both sides by 16, and we find that t equals 6.25 years. Okay, so it took us 6.25 years for us to earn $100 in interest when we deposit $800 and earn 2% interest. All right, now it's time for you to actually not write in your notes, but for you to do 3 practice problems. Okay, the first practice problem, we're finding the balance like we did earlier in this section. We are depositing $200 into a savings account. The account earns 2% simple interest. And we want to know what the balance is after 5 years. Well, first we need to find how much interest we earned, right? So I equals 200 times 0.02 times 5. And that ends up being $20, right? So the interest we earned was $20. Now we add that interest to our principal, 200. So what is our balance? All right, the next one is finding an annual interest rate. And in this one, we are depositing $700. That's our principal. The account earns, wow, it earns $224 simple interest in 8 years. All right, so we need to use all this information to help us find our annual interest rate. We're given I, 224. We're given the principal is 700. We don't know what R is, but we know the year is 8, right? So 224 equals 5,600 R. Divide both sides by 5,600. And for this particular problem, I'd say go ahead and use a calculator to calculate that out. All right, so you're going to get some decimal. You're going to get a decimal as your answer. And then you need to convert that into a percent. And that is your answer for this problem. All right, and then my hints for the very final one is finding the amount of time. Okay, for this one, how long does it take an account with a principal of $10,000 to earn $750 in interest, assuming an interest rate of 3%. 3% in decimal form is 0.03. Again, we can use the formula. We're solving for t. We were told that the simple interest is $750. We were told that the principal amount is $10,000 and that the rate is 0.03, and we want to find t. So 750 equals 300t. Divide both sides by 300, and that will give you your time. T equals 750 divided by 300. So how many years does that simplify down to? You can use a calculator to divide 750 by 300, and that should give you your answer. And that's the end of 6.6.